Sepertinya sudah ada Mas Pandu ya. Assalamualaikum Bang Pandu.
Waalaikumsalam Mas Gis.
Alhamdulillah.
Assalamualaikum Mas Pandu.
Waalaikumsalam Pak. Baik-baik Pak. Alhamdulillah.
Yes, sudah siap ya. Oke. Kita akan segera mulai dalam hitungan 20 detik dari sekarang. Wait a minute. Yes. Baik, kita mulai Pak Harun dan juga Mas Pandu ya. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Oke. Baik, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Good afternoon for all participants in Jakarta and also Pa Harun. Assalamualaikum Pa Harun. And also good evening for Mas Pandu in Tokyo, even though it's summer. So it's gonna be late sunset at 7 p.m. and also Mas Dedi in Tokyo. And good evening for myself in Canberra, Australia. It's a good opportunity for us because we have two speakers. The first one would be Pa Harun, Muhammad Harun, currently assigned as the Vice President in PT Pertamina, and he's also been doing a very good performance in Tokyo as a Chief Representative of Pertamina in East Asia, based in Tokyo. And secondly, we have a speaker currently from Indonesian Embassy in Tokyo, Mas Pandu Manggala. Assalamualaikum Mas Pandu.
Waalaikumsalam.
Yeah, he's now assigned as Second Secretary in Economic Function at Indonesian Embassy of Tokyo in Tokyo. All right, I would like also to mention and also honorable mention for our participants. First one, Alik from Jakarta, from Bea Cukai, Kang Asep Cahyana, Auliani. Auliani is still high school, but she really she eager to learn about Japan itself, about to go abroad sometimes. And also Mas Chandra from Surabaya, Kang Dedi Eka dari from Tokyo. Mbak Fairuz, she's also in studying master degree in UK, but currently return to home country in Indonesia. Hilmi, Indra from Bea Cukai Sumatera Utara, and then Robi from Bea Cukai Tanjung Perak, and Mas Sigit. All right, for the session, we will have three sessions. The first one would be the keynote speaker, Pa Harun, that will deliver about the economic coordination, especially in terms of oil and gas. And the second presentation will be delivered by Mas Pandu, and it's also special because the first session will be about his journey becoming a diplomat, and the second session would be the highlight about economic coordination between Japan and also Indonesia. And the last part would be the question and answer. Anyone who would like to raise any question, you can put the icon or feature raise hand, or just put on the chat box about the question. Okay, Pa Harun. It's been a long time, Pa Harun.
Yep.
And yes, the presentation already submitted 3 times yesterday. The first one Indonesian version, and then revised, and the last one would be the English one. All right, Pa Harun, I will make you the co-host, and the screen is yours. Please, Pa Harun.
Okay, thank you, Pak Iswandi. Very good afternoon for my dear colleague Pak Iswandi and others guests that's already joined in this conversation. My dear colleague in Tokyo, konnichiwa, and very good evening. Other colleagues in Australia and maybe from other side of the world. That's right now we have been easy to connecting each other during the COVID. This is the barakah of the COVID that we can make it some of the conversations much easier right now, and we utilizing the technology to contact and silaturahim each other. So actually, as Mas Iswandi already mentioned, that I already assigned as Pacific Petroleum and Trading President Director. This is the joint venture company between Pertamina and Spain. And I would like to back to the earliest of the Indonesian's oil bonanza, that at that time Indonesia start to develop the country with utilizing the oil boom, and then the export from the oil. Yeah, and at that times when the first in the mid of the 60s, when the President Sukarno and at that time Bapak Ibnu Sutowo as the President Director of the Pertamina. Yeah, he is a general that assigned by President Sukarno to take over the Shell. That at that time Shell is still Indonesia, and then President Sukarno asked to Mr. Ibnu Sutowo to overtake all of the facilities that occupied by Shell, and then become as a Pertamina. And when the first time Pertamina found or explored the oil and gas in the Sumatra, at that times in the early mid of 60, we Pertamina found the Minas and Duri crude. So at that time, Pak Ibnu Sutowo cooperate with our client, our close partner in Japan. And especially at that time, President Sukarno and Japan have a close relation, as we already know. Japan actually is a real big brother for Indonesia at that time, because in one side, Japan look for the oil to secure the energy demand that at that time Japan is already growing in industry, and the other side, Indonesia requires some a dollar for developing our country. That after we found the Minas and Duri crude. So this is the first cooperation actually between Indonesia and Japan, and that's why the company that I lead in Tokyo, this is a joint venture company with this 50% owned by the Indonesia, Pertamina, and the 50% owned by the Japanese shareholder, that at the times they utilizing Indonesian crude for securing the energy for the manufacturer and also for the industry and household in Japan. So this is the mutual cooperation between Indonesia and Japan. So our company, PPT Energy Trading, is already more than, if started in 65, it's already 45 years right now. Or more than 60, actually 55 years, yeah, right now. And we know all of the, if all of us come to the Tokyo and we have time to come to street, we can look at that the street, and Balai Indonesia is also built by the oil foundation at that time. That the President Sukarno and also the Pak Ibnu Sutowo started cooperation within Indonesia and Japan. So from the first step, cooperation in the producing oil and export oil to Japan, we come to the next step, which is when the early 70s, at the earliest of the President Suharto era. So at that time, Pertamina founds giant gas field in the Arun area, Somawe, Aceh. So we don't have any idea at that time. If we found the oil, we just put it in a tank and then export. But if we found the big or giant gas field, we don't have any idea how to develop or materialize or how to monetize our gas field. So again, in that era, Indonesia and Japan, we start cooperation to develop the first LNG liquid LNG plant in the world, which is in Arun, Somawe. So we come to Japan at that time, and we assure all of the our partner Japan, and then Japan's also have idea how to bring the gas from the Harun to Japan. So the idea come up with the first idea at that time, and I think it's a very, very genius idea that's right now all over the world utilizing this idea. We come up with the liquefied the gas. So we call the LNG, liquefied natural gas. So the gas, we condense, we compress the gas, and also we make the temperature of the gas up below the minus 160 degree. So the gas become the liquid, and then when the gas become the liquid, so we can transport the gas. We can put the gas in the vessel, and then from the vessel we can export to Japan. This is the brilliant idea, and the Pertamina and also Indonesia and Japan start with the milestone to develop the giant gas field in Indonesia, and then Japan. And also we link with the South Korea, and also we link with the Taiwan as our foundation buyer at that time, that the finance and also the utilizing the gas that we export to the three traditional foundation buyer for the LNG in the world. So finally, Indonesia can get more benefit from that from the gas, and we can utilize the giant field in Harun. And then the second step after Harun, we develop the Bontang, and also till right now we have the Bontang, we have the Donggi Snoro, and we have the Tangguh. And also this idea actually, mostly all of the country in the world, they copy this idea to develop the LNG in that area. So right now, Australia and US as well, and other countries that they have the gas giant demand, and if they would like to export, they bring it and make it the liquefaction. So we're growing together actually between the Indonesia and Japan. In the Indonesian side, we can explore our natural resource, and the other side, Japan can utilize their capability in manufacture and industry to develop Indonesia. And this is actually the cooperation that we already make it by historically Indonesia and Japan. That recently, if we look at the slide that I already submit to Pa Iswana, that we look at the export balance between Indonesia and Japan is currently getting lower and lower. So I think this is the lesson learned for us actually, how we can utilize more deeply in a cooperation with Japan. So because the Indonesia resource right now getting declined, and then Japan's also right now not only invest in Indonesia, it's also invest in other country. So recently with the COVID, when the Japanese government announced the idea to move their facility and a production facility in China to other country, this is actually the opportunity for Indonesia to welcoming all of the Japanese investor to come again to Indonesia. So this actually the cooperation, and then what the business that I handle in Tokyo, especially related with the oil and gas. Firstly, we export the oil, and then right now, because the oil is decreased and more consuming for the domestic demand, and right now we still export in the LNG, but the number of exports is very limited right now. And for the LNG, that Japan right now consumes more than 80 million ton per year. So mostly the LNG come from the Qatar, and then from the Australia, and then from the US. So Indonesia only maybe right now is 5% compared with the 30 or 25 years ago that mostly all of the energy demand come from the Indonesia. I think this is the lesson learned process right now for us, that we have to create some climate investment that we can attract again the Japan, because Japan, we realize that Indonesia loves Japan, and Japan is also love the Indonesian. In terms, we have the same in culture, and then we have the same we have a cooperation in history, and then in the same way, we as a brother, somehow we have a good cooperation, and somehow we also have a different side in some part of the business. But I think this is part of the up and downs relationship between the Indonesia and Japan. So I think this is the preliminary that I can share with all of us, and maybe more interactive discussion will be more welcome, and we can deep dive all of the segment that right now Japan is already come up with others technology. And if we look at my slide right now, our slide right now, so Pertamina still have a cooperation with the value of cooperation with Japan is around 8.5 billion. This is related with the some of the activity related with the oil and gas, of course, with the infrastructure, with the construction of our refinery, and some of the activity related with the new and renewable energy, include the geothermal and solar and others, part of the hydro as well. And we have a cooperation with Japan. So this is Mas Iswandi that share from us from historical and then current situation between Indonesia and Japan.
Wow, thank you, Pa Harun. Yeah, it's been a very great insight and also knowledge about the cooperation, particularly about this liquid natural gas that was it was a milestone between Indonesia and also Japan, and it's followed by the other countries about making it easier to transport the liquid natural gas into other countries. Thank you, Pa Harun, for the preliminary, and hopefully Pa Harun will still available here while you have maybe snacks or coffee, because after this we will have the second speaker. Okay, I forgot to introduce Pa Harun ya. Pa Harun ini he's been doing master degree in Auckland University as the best student. Wah, ini keren banget Pa Harun. In 1998. It's been it's a very long time ago.
A long time ago.
Alright, Pak Harun, thank you so much. Ya, kita masih di sharing session pada malam hari ini. Di sini sudah malam ya, dan juga teman-teman yang sudah hadir. Nah, ini sudah hadir lagi Mas Pandu, our second speaker. We have two section for Mas Pandu. The first one, we can interact about his journey becoming the diplomat now, currently in Indonesian Embassy in Tokyo. Assalamualaikum, Mas Pandu.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
How are you there in Tokyo? Langsung.
Good, yeah. I just recently returned home from the embassy. So
all right.
Good thing about today's situation is that the embassy doesn't receive many guests from Indonesia. So we are now focused on what we are doing. Our responsibilities, and try to pursue every pending issues with Japan. So good time to try to learn more things about Japan and Indonesia, about relations as well.
All right. For any participants who like to raise any question to Pa Harun and also Mas Pandu, you can hold or just type on the chat box. So many insight. The first preliminary from Pa Harun about the LNG, about the export and import balance Indonesia and Japan, about is there any any other sources? I mean, in our Indonesia island, just hold or you can type on chat box and you can directly ask to our speakers. And Mas Pandu, we have like 10 minutes to tell the stories about your CV, about your diplomatic journey, Diplomat Muda did Asia Timur Pacific 2019, also these kinds of duty, and best assist graduate in NU 2013, excellent engagement award, and also Bintang Fisip UI 2008, and the highest rank for Fisip UI 2008. Okay, 10 minutes for you. Time is, the screen is yours, Mas Pandu.
All right, I'm gonna just share my screen.
All right, stop here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, can you see my slide?
Yep. Excellent.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about this, but since Mas Iswandi asked me to tell my stories about diplomat and diplomacy, just gonna share a bit of my experience. So, I joined the foreign ministry in 2010. Just after I graduated from universities so normally every junior diplomat needs to attend some kind of diplomatic training in Pusdiklat Kemlu in Senayan for 1 year. So at that time I was batch 35. And it was, and it's still the largest, quote unquote, largest batch in the foreign ministry, because we had 148 diplomats joining into 2010. So still the largest number. Usually now one batch consists of around 70 diplomats, junior diplomats. But my batch was the largest. So I joined the ministry in 2010, and then for 1 year I attended diplomatic training at Pusdiklat Kemlu in Senayan. After that, we were ranked based on our performance at the diplomatic training. And then we were assigned for a short posting abroad, just to learn on how to be a diplomat. So at that time, I was very fortunate enough to be posted at the Indonesian Embassy in Tokyo. So from November 2010 until February 2011, mid-February, just before the Great Earthquake. So it was a very memorable experience for me, because in 2010, Yokohama was the host for APEC summit. So when I came to Tokyo at that time, I was busy and doing all stuff related to APEC, and then learning on how to welcoming delegations and guests. High dignitary guests. So it was really a good experience for a junior diplomat like me at that time. So it was only a short posting assignment, so around 3 months. Mid-February, I returned to the capital, to Jakarta, and since I was among the top 18 in my batch, we were eligible to be to attend another diplomatic training in The Hague, the Netherlands. So end of February, so I returned to Jakarta in mid-February 2011, and then I and my other batchmates, the 18 batchmates, went to The Hague for another diplomatic training, another 3 months in Klingendale Institutes. So when the Great Earthquake happened, a lot of my friends asked me, were you okay? Did you experience, how was your situation? So everyone thought I was still in Tokyo, but that time I was already in The Hague, so I just informed them I was well and safe, and now in The Hague joining the diplomatic training. So I was very fortunate. But seeing what happened in Tokyo in 2011, I couldn't proud enough for my seniors at the embassy at that time, because they were one of the first foreign diplomats in Tokyo to reach Kesunuma, and in where was that? In Kesunuma is in one of the epicentrum of the earthquake, to save our national citizens trapped in that area. So the embassy of Tokyo were doing a very brilliant job protecting the citizens of Indonesia, and not only citizens of Indonesia, because we took home to Tokyo some other civilians trapped in Kesunuma, and Japan and other embassy also thanked the embassy in Tokyo for that. So yeah, I was really proud of my seniors at the time, and I looked into them on how to tackle difficult situation when it happened. So yeah, that was my story. So after I went to The Hague for another Klingendale diplomatic training, and then I returned to Jakarta only for a year, because I was then assigned to be the assistant, the personal secretary of the Director General for Asia Pacific Affairs. At that time, Pa Hamzah Tayyip, and then when Pa Hamzah became an ambassador, I was assisting Pa Yuri Tamrin, the DG for Asia Pacific and African Affairs, only for a year, 2011 to 2012, because I received a scholarship from Australia Awards. So from 2012 to 2014, I was pursuing my master degree in NU. It was really a memorable experience. Mas Iswan, you know very well now in Canberra.
Yep.
Even though it was a very quiet city, but somehow I miss the scenery. I miss the ambience there in Canberra. So I really enjoyed my time when I was in Canberra, and I learned so many things, because when I was in NU, I learned so many about Indonesia's international relations, because there were a lot of expert Indonesians in NU. Mas Iswandi told me that I received the Best Thesis Award at that time, because I don't know, maybe because I wrote something that they couldn't understand. So you want to achieve good mark to your supervisor, professor, make them make yourself write something that your professor probably couldn't arguing to you about. I was then writing about Majapahit. So I argued that Majapahit was the center of the international relations in the Southeast Asia pre-colonial, and the relations with the Chinese kingdom at the time was not a tributary relations, but it was a balanced relations. So that's why the Majapahit international relations somehow make some kind of norm setting for the ASEAN today. So that kind of argument that I was made in my thesis, and I was thankful enough I received the Best Thesis Award at that time, and I was very fortunate enough. So after I came back to Jakarta from Canberra, I was then in charge of the bilateral relations, particularly China and the CLMV nations, Cambodia, Vietnam, Myanmar, and Laos. So China and CLMV. So I was assigned as the head of sections at that time, and it was very interesting period because I became the head of section for China in 2015, and it was the first year of Pa Jokowi's term. And you probably know so well, in the first year of his tenure, his priority was towards the Asia Pacific, mostly to China. Indonesia-China relations were really strong at that time, and somehow I learned that Pa Jokowi and President Xi Jinping of China has some kind of chemistry between them, because they usually met in every international forum, or just having a phone call with each other. And I was also among the delegations when Pa Jokowi visited China for the first time in March 2015. So it was really an interesting period, because I was involved in the negotiation and in many issues at that time, on how to synergize the maritime fulcrum of Indonesia and then the Belt and Road Initiative of China, because somehow those two initiatives have that kind of a maritime cooperation element. And that was also the reason why I took my PhD in Japan, because my PhD topic was on Indonesia's maritime cooperation. Perhaps you might question why I went to Japan, because I mentioned earlier I was assigned for a short posting in Tokyo, and I fell in love with Tokyo. So when I got a chance to have a scholarship there, I just pursued it. Even though I have to release my duty as the head of section for China, because perhaps nowadays there's some kind of anecdote. Beijing is the new Washington's. So if you in charge of China, then you most probably will be immersed with the inner circle of the presidents, and you will gain a lot of experience. So at that time, I just released my responsibility as the head of section for China, and then I went to Japan for my study. And after I came back, because I was from Japan, then I joined again the Directorate for East Asia and Pacific Affairs, and was in charge of the Japan desk at that time. So only a year in 2019, and now I'm now assigned in the Embassy of Indonesia in Tokyo, in charge of economic affairs. So yeah, I was very fortunate enough to come back to Tokyo, because this is one of the posts that perhaps every Indonesian diplomat wants to have, because Tokyo is Tokyo, with the nuance of the city and then the good bilateral relations. So I was very fortunate enough, and coming back to Japan.
Wow.
So that's my story becoming
Pandu. In Japanese we can say subarashi. Mas Dedi, betul Mas Dedi ya. All right, one question before you start your highlight about economic. Did you really dream to become such kinds of diplomat right now, or it's like you just came up with the idea, I want to be diplomat, or someday, or you've been dreaming it since you're a kid or something?
Actually, I started my dream of becoming a diplomat when I was high school. So at that time, I was in my second grade in high school. I like to read a lot about about history, Indonesian history, international histories. And at that time, I wrote about the history of World War II by P.K. Oyong, published by Kompas.
Wow.
It was really a good a book, historical book on World War II. You probably want to check it and then read it. Was a good book. So at that time, okay, I really want to know about the world. I really want to know about the how to deal with other countries. And then I just started my dream there when I was high school. And yeah, even though I was a science student, I tried to enroll in high UI.
Yep.
So I learned so many things about. I tried to catch up with historic lesson, with economic, with accounting, and so on. So I was very fortunate to enroll in high UI, and then here I am.
Yes, and it was amazing facts that Mas Pandu did Majapahit thesis in ANU for master degree, and then switch off to the maritime in PhD one, and then now you are doing economy. It's like interesting. how you catch up? How you catch up with these kinds of challenge within your career?
Yeah, I think when you become a diplomat, you have to know everything. You have to be a generalist on one side, but on the other side, you need somehow to have that kind of one specialty in your diplomatic career. So I learned so many things about ASEAN because of the Majapahit, and then I also did a lot about maritime issues, and now I'm in charge in economic affairs. But I try to have that kind of specialty, and now I'm trying to building my focus on the East Asia affairs.
All right. Okay, Mas Pandu, I would like to invite one of our participants to ask about your journey before going to your topic. Anyone?
All right.
Maybe Mas Ali, Mas Asep, Auliani, Chandra, Mas Dedi, Dika, Farin, Dina, to ask personal journey and then catch up with the economic highlights. Okay, I would like to ask Farin. Farin, would you please activate your microphone?
Yes, Pak Iswandi.
How are you, Farin?
I'm fine today.
Any question to Mas Pandu before we go to the highlight?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah,
but,
what is that?
It's not about your biodata, but it's talk about people that having disability, the rights of people that having disability. Can I ask about it?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. So Pak Pandu, our president, Pak Jokowi, take one of the representative of people that having disability to work as his special staff khusus. And I think by now it's clear that our government wants to equalize the rights of people that having disability with the normal people like us. And based on that, I think the part of the government should socialize their services with the friendly way so they can catch about our service. But still, I don't see any part of government bodies or any part of government agency that have done this kind of approach. So my questions would be, do you think it's important to care about the rights of people that having disability, to know about our services? That's my question.
Okay, thank you, Farin. Short answer, Mas Pandu, about disability, about service in Indonesia.
I just want to take it back to the international relations thing. Of course, I think there are a lot of government bodies that dealing with such kind of issues. Kementerian Sosial, Kementerian PMK, they have people who are dealing with disabilities issues in Indonesia now. I think they are doing their best to socialize it to the people in Indonesia, and even we in Kemlu, Bu Menlu and his director generals already built some kind of access for disabled who are coming to Kemlu in the Jambon. So I think every government institution, government buildings already implement that kind of services in their buildings. And for your question, how to socialize, you might want to know that Indonesia just elected to be one of the members in the UN ECOSOC body, Economic and Social Cultural Council in New York. So just last week, I believe Indonesia was elected to be one of the members. And I think that also one of the issues that will be put forward by KBRI, by our missions in New York, so that everyone can have the same access, even though they are have some kind of disabilities.
All right. Thank you, Pandu. Farin, hope that will answer your question. Okay, Pandu, you still have 20 minutes to deliver your presentation about the highlight, the economic coordination between Indonesia and Japan. Now the screen is yours again.
Thank you. So I just want to share this Indonesia-Japan toward a peaceful and prosperous future. I don't want to go through in details, but you can ask me if you want to. I would like to begin by the basic facts on Japan, so you guys might want to know. Japan is, of course, the third largest economy after the US and China. The GDP around 4.9 trillion. And its foreign exchange reserve is also big, second largest in the world after China. And why this is important? This is important when things happen in the world like now. We have a pandemic, COVID pandemic, and the government of Japan already released the stimulus package, the economic stimulus package, and I think it is the biggest that all governments in the world release now. It accounted for now, if I'm not mistaken, is 41% of Japan GDP. So you can try to see the bigger picture. Japan put an economic stimulus package for COVID, and it accounts around 41% of its GDP. So they give subsidies to all citizens, they give free benefits, so the economic won't collapse during this pandemic. And to have that kind of big foreign exchange reserve will be good for them to stabilize their budget system. So they're one of the second largest foreign exchange reserve. Its population is around 126,000 people, and I think half Indonesia. Indonesia is compared to Indonesia, it's very, very small. Indonesia is how many now? 270 million, people. But Japan only one. It has Emperor Naruhito, and then the head of government is Prime Minister Abe. So this is the policies of Abe, Prime Minister Abe, in terms of economics. Hello.
Yeah, Mas Pandu, I think your signal a bit low over there.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah,
okay.
It's coming. Yeah, it's coming back.
I think so sorry. Yeah. Let me go back again. So this is the Abenomics. You can find out about Abenomics later on. This is the overall bilateral relations with Japan. We are now in 62 years. We have bilateral relations since April 1958. And Japan is one of the strategic partners of Indonesia in terms of trade and investment. Japan is the second largest trading partner for Indonesia after China, and it's also the second largest foreign investor after Singapore. And its foreign tourists is also among the top 10 to Indonesia. Japan has given so many ODA and grant for our national development, and they have so many big infrastructure projects also in Indonesia. Just go through some of the bilateral economic relations. This is the trade statistic. 2019, it decreased from 2018. The total trade only 31 billion, but it was due to the low economic growth in the world, and also Japan domestic factors, because they also having a slow economy in 2019 because of the Typhoon Hagibis, the end of year 2019, and also their private consumptions decrease also. So this is the potential commodities. If you want to know more about what kind of products to be exported to Japan, oil and gas still the largest number, but there are also the other commodities. You can see like nickel, rubber, automotive part, and so on and so forth. And this is still the potential commodities as well. The biomass, especially because from next year, Japan will implement a mixed energy policy. So there has to be 22% of renewable energy that the industry use. So Japan will also want to import more of Indonesia's palm oil, Indonesia palm kernel shell, or this is cangkang sawit, and also wood pellets, and Indonesia cacao. This is the four potential commodities to be exported to Japan. This is the number of the foreign investors. As I mentioned earlier, Japan is still the second largest investor in Indonesia, even though if you see the statistic from BKPM, the first quarter of 2020, Japan was ranked fourth, if I'm not mistaken, because of the large investment from China and Hong Kong. But still, overall, from 2014 to 2019, Japan is still the second largest investor in Indonesia. This is the investment of Japan, mostly on transportation. We know that we have MRT assisted by Japan. We have also electricity. Now, I think Helios, Japan, working with PGN, Gas Nasional, Gas Negara ya, perusahaan gas negara, to have some kind of gas installment in Jakarta area. They have also housing. Daiwa is one of the biggest apartment. I think they have so many projects in Indonesia as well. This is the fourth biggest infrastructure projects of Japan in Indonesia. As I mentioned earlier, in last year, in April, if I'm not mistaken, the Indonesian government launched the MRT, which I believe we are so happy about it because a lot of people feel very comfortable riding MRT. Seems that if you want to know about how good Japan transportation, you can just enjoy the MRT Jakarta. And now Japan also, with the Japan grant and also loan, we will try to develop the Patimban port. This is in Subang, West Java, and we will also build Jakarta Surabaya Express train, also assisted by Japan loan. And last but not least is the Masela block. Perhaps Pa Harun, this is the area Pa Harun very capable of. This will be the largest investment, foreign investment in Indonesia. I think it worth around 20 million US dollar, the project of Masela block, and it signifies the expansion of Japanese investment in Indonesia, particularly to the eastern side of Indonesia. Next one, this is I want to talk about how we try to improve the good relations that we have with Japan. So as mentioned earlier, Abenomics has these three pillars: the monetary policy, the flexible fiscal policy, and the third arrow is revitalization strategy. What is revitalization strategy? Japan would like to restructure its economy because they are now aging society. There are a lot of old, quote unquote, old people in Japan, and they lack of workers. So they already opened some kind of special visa for working in Japan. It's called the specified skilled workers. So Japan will invite a lot of skilled workers to Japan to work in 14 sectors in Japan, and they will have good money in Japan because their salary is similar to the professionals in Japan. If I'm not mistaken, it will be around 300,000 yen or 40 million rupiah worth of salary every month. So it's a big money, and this is some of the cooperation that we are now trying to work with Japan to send more skilled workers of Indonesia to Japan. Next thing is that this might be very interesting as well. This is the market potential to halal product because Japan economy now dealing with a tourist. So their economy is now very stagnant. So they are very dependent on foreign tourists, and they now Japan see the market in Southeast Asia country, particularly in Malaysia, in Indonesia. So they want to have that kind of more halal food in Japan. Mas Iswandi might perhaps already know that there are a lot of halal ramen, halal sushi nowadays. But if you compare it to 2010, when I was in Tokyo for my short posting, it was still difficult for me to find halal ramen, halal sushi, because even halal meat, it's very difficult to find. But nowadays in Japan, with the growing market of halal products in Japan, we can easily find halal ramen, halal sushi, halal meat, and everything else. So this is the market potential, the halal products. So, but compared to other countries, our share of halal product in Japan is still relatively low. I was so surprised when I know that the biggest exporter of halal meat to Japan is not even a Muslim, a Muslim or populated countries. It is Japan. It is Brazil. The Brazilian meat is the largest shareholder of halal meat in Japan. So Brazil and Thailand. So this is something that we want to catch up. Even though our share is still relatively low for halal product in Japan, but the trend is increasing. So this is the potential market that we need to tap into, the halal product to send more halal product to Japan. Another thing is that food preparations, packaging, something that we can also boost our trade with Japan, and then sending automotive parts, furniture, home appliance. This is basically because we have so many good wood in Indonesia. We can send more furniture, home appliance to Japan. Renewable energy I already mentioned. Palm oil, palm kernel shell, wood pellets. This is something that we can tap into as well. And last but not least is agriculture or horticulture. Mas Iswandi also might already know that the melon, the watermelon, the banana in Japan was so good. But those are imported from Philippines mostly. So this is something that we now dealing with Japan to send more Indonesian bananas, to send more Indonesian melon, Indonesian watermelon, and other fruits to Japan. Mango, one of the West Java mango is one of the commodities that we're trying to sell to Japan now. And last but least, this is something that we are now doing. This is not final, but we are now building some kind of smart embassy. We want to develop the dashboard for economy. So investors, so that entrepreneurs can learn what are the top commodities to send to Japan, how to invest in Indonesia, what is the situation of economic situation in Indonesia and in Japan. This is something that we want to build now because during this COVID pandemic time, what we can do is try to improve our database to provide more technological base policy. So this is something that we're now developing at the embassy. We try to build a smart embassy so people can know what the potential, what the opportunities to tap into to Japan. So I think that's all what I can share with you. And yeah, you feel free to contact me. Nowadays, we no longer exchange name cards, but we often exchange social media. So feel free to follow me at Instagram at Pandu_Manggala. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Mas Pandu Manggala. Big applause dong untuk Mas Pandu. Mas Pandu, okay. Now we have a time, 30 minutes for discussion. You may raise any comments to Pa Harun about the oil, about the gas, about the situation, and also the predictions of Indonesian and Japan in terms of oil and gas. You may also raise question about Mas Pandu June, about his success, his current success, and also about his duty in terms of highlight. Okay, there is Mas Didi Eka from Tokyo. Okay, you can unmute and activate. Mas Didi, monggo. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, Swandi. First of all, I'd like to thanks for all presenters who has very interesting presentation today. First, I'd like to ask to Pa Harun,
Pa Harun,
about LNG. As I know, maybe LNG is not suitable for long-term storage or stockpile. So maybe there is impact of this corona pandemic on LNG supply to, for example, from Indonesia to Japan. How about, so I'd like to know, is there any impact of this current pandemic on LNG trade between Indonesia and Japan? And also I'd like to ask about, is there any impact of the pandemic on oil? Because as we know, the oil price is now in very low price. And is there, it is good news for Pertamina or bad news for? I'd like to know. Maybe just that question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mas Dedi.
Okay, thank you, Mas Dedi.
Why don't you ask in Japanese? Okay, domo arigato. Okay, Pa Harun.
Okay, Mas Dedi, it's a very interesting question and very factual right now. And as we know, Japan is the biggest LNG importer in the world. So, of course, with the current situation where the demands, appetite, there's no appetite for the LNG demand, and also especially right now, Japan's relatively stable in the consuming the LNG, even though Japan has already shut down mostly around 28 or 30, more than 30 nuclear power, but Japan right now more utilizing the new and renewable from the solar panel and from wind, and they still require the LNG because for the new and renewable energy, they can only generate the power estimated how big the energy or electricity can be generated from the power at least 2 days before, because very related to the weather forecast. So that's why if they forecasted the supply from new and renewable will be decreased, so they utilize the LNG to burn and make it a balance between the supply. And of course, if we look at mostly the industry is slowed down, and not only in Japan, it's all over the world. And that's why the crude prices also right now goes down, and then the LNG is also even deeper and deeper for the LNG right now. So in the market price for spot right now is only $4 per MMBTU. I think this is very, very low. This is a big impact actually for Indonesia because in the upstream side, so we predict that actually government would like to get the more benefit from the fiscal term of the upstream production, but the price is very low right now. So this is the big impact for Indonesia. And oil as well, even though we import, but for Pertamina actually we did the natural hedging actually, because when the crude price is very low, and we can utilize our tank to we fulfill all of the crude from the import, and then we can refine and utilizing and benefiting the lowest of the crude price. But if the crude price is very high, we get the more benefit because our upstream side, we have production is mostly almost 800 million barrel oil equivalent per day. So I think that's a good one. For us, is we prefer that crude price is high for Pertamina, of course. But with the current situation, actually is very challenging. So that's why facing the situation, as Mas Jadi know, the consumption of all of the world is, I think, is already cut maybe around 30%. And as you know, like the after the jet fuel is almost 90% decrease. So there is no flight in domestic and also international. In Pertamina as well, we cannot push the after because there's no flight in domestic and also international. This is a very tough situation, especially for Pertamina. So that's why we coping the situation. We reduce the capex and opex. Capex, we reduce capex is about 30%, and reducing the opex about 30% as well. And also right now we focusing to minimizing and also the smoothing the organization and make it some part of the layer of organizations to become more slim, and some of the activity we make some synergy one in others areas so we can cut the cost. This is actually a very challenging situation, Mas Jadi, right now. But every situation always have opportunity. So we still have opportunity to develop, and we do hope that early 2021 the situation getting better, and we can picking up the demand and also the some production we can start with in the early next year. So right now is our time to consolidate and more synergize with others, and then make it efficient the operation of the company.
Thank you,
It's
Pa Harun.
Pertamina concern. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Pa Harun, and also Mas Dedi. Of course, it's not a very good news, but it's quite challenging. That's why we invite Vice President Corporate Strategic and Planning yang langsung in charge ya untuk planning dan strategi di Pertamina. Now there are two participants who would like to raise any comments. Start with Asep Cahyana. You may unmute your microphone. All right, Mas Asep. Mangga.
Well, thank you, Mas Iswandi.
Yeah.
First, I want to say sorry, because my English is not too good.
No,
I want to practice
okay.
it.
It's okay.
I have written my question, but maybe it's better to me for practicing my English.
Yeah.
So I want to read it. Two questions. It's no problem.
I think one major question. one.
One I just want to have a question for Mas Pandu.
Yeah.
Mas Pandu, I have read quite a lot from the literature on the progress of governance in China and its relation to the progress of its economy, especially in recent times. But I didn't read much about government administration in Japan. Could you give me an overview of things that can be learned from the administration of government in Japan?
Okay,
thank you.
That's clear. Thank you, Mas Asep. All right, Mas Pandu, monggo.
Yeah, perhaps I already share some policies that the government of Japan has been doing. Let me try to share one more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the Abenomics. This is one of the highlights under Prime Minister Abe. So Japan, as we already know, perhaps Japan is an aging populations. Their senior citizens already exceeds the number of the young generations in Japan. So with that and the economy as well, even though they are still the third largest economy in the world, but if you see the economic growth, Japan is relatively very stagnant, only 0.1% of growth. And now with the COVID situations, the IMF already predicted that Japan economy will decrease minus 5% this year. So this is not a good time for the Japanese government. That's why Prime Minister Abe has been campaigning a lot about Abenomics. And what is Abenomics? I already shared. This is the Abenomics. So basically, they have the three arrows of policies. The first aim to towards the monetary policies. So they want to change the structure of their monetary policy. And the Bank of Japan, if you read news, has been doing a lot of transformations, especially during this pandemic. They already released some kind of bold policies, giving, for instance, relaxations to loan and everything, and so on and so forth. The second thing is the fiscal policy. I mentioned earlier as well, during this pandemic, Japan already released economic stimulus package. It accounts 41% of Japan's GDP, the biggest among the other countries in the world right now. So they are trying to do that kind of thing. And then the third arrow is the restructuring of the economy, meaning that they want to invite more foreign citizens to Japan to work here in Japan, giving their special status, the specified skilled workers, and they want to change their energy policy using the energy mix and so on and so forth. So this is the basically the one of the biggest policies of Prime Minister Abe, the Abenomics. This is the economic policy. So, and for the politics, Japan now pursuing a free and open Indo-Pacific. So, some analysts argue that this is to challenge the Belt and Road Initiative by China. But Prime Minister Abe and his government already always mentioned that no, it's not aimed to challenge the Belt and Road, but it wants to create a more prosperous Asia Pacific, Indo-Pacific countries. So they want to develop more infrastructure projects in Indo-Pacific. They want to provide more cooperation in terms of maritime cooperation and so on and so forth. So those two, the Abenomics and the free and open Indo-Pacific, are the main policies of Prime Minister Abe right now. So basically, that I can share to you.
Yeah, Mas Pandu, from Mas Asep, he would like to any one reform, I mean administrative reform for the governance in terms of the government itself, a part of the politics and the economics. Do you have any one example for governance or intern? Yes, intern. I mean, a part of the economics, a part of the politics. Like
yeah,
maybe
I mentioned earlier the specified skilled workers.
Okay.
The SSW policy is one of the bold move by the Japanese government nowadays, because Japan is very homogeneous society, and for foreign citizen working in Japan is kind of difficult. We have now caregiver, we have now a lot of Indonesian nurses working in Japan, but their status is I don't know. The visa is, I think, designated visa, and they can only working in Japan for a number of years.
Yeah.
But with this SSW policy, you can get salary as much as professionals in Japan receive, and you will get a longer contract. So we can send more Indonesian skilled workers to Japan, and this is the opportunity that we are now pursuing with Japan.
Yes, okay, that's clear. Thank you, Mas Pandu. I would like to invite for next participant, Mas Sabto. Okay, you can unmute your microphone, Sabto.
Okay, firstly, thank you very much.
How are you, Sabto?
Apa kabar, Mas Sabto?
Long time no see. It's a good time during my stay in Japan in street.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to ask a few questions, but Mas is said that only one question at a time.
Question.
So I'd like to ask only one question to Mas Pandu. Oh, shall I use Japanese instead?
Yeah. Use Japanese if you want. And nobody understand.
Okay, English it is.
Yeah.
Mas Pandu, I'd like to ask question about our export to Japan in terms of natural resources. For example, the one that you mentioned earlier, that chicken meat. In Japan, we can find halal chicken meat in Gyeonggu for if I'm not mistaken, 1,000 yen for 2 kilograms. I mean, in Indonesia, we've got a lot of resources like that. We are abundant in terms of resources. What made us how do I put this? Losing our stances when in terms of exporting to Japan. I mean, what made us losing our competition with Brazil, for example, in terms of providing halal meats or other resources. I mean, if you can search in Indonesia, we've got a lot of farmer or those who can provide not very distant quality of meat, for example. Of course, we've got to search those who can provide with lower price in order to compete with Brazil production. But in your opinion, or in a real condition, what made us losing our competition with them?
Yeah.
In terms of providing halal related food or service.
Okay, thank you, Mas Sabto. What a good question. Simple question, Mas Pandu. What is the barriers or the challenge for Indonesian exporter in terms of meat, halal products to Japan compared to other countries like Brazil? Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the challenge, but on one hand, it's a very potential the opportunities. That's why I call it market potentials. We, as I mentioned earlier, our share for halal product in Japan is still relatively low compared to other countries such as Brazil, such as Thailand, such as Malaysia, but the trend is increasing. I think what we can do is we need to prepare our meat exporter to meet the standard of Japan, because Japanese companies, if they want to import our product, we need to meet certain of criteria, the packaging, label of certification, and then the traceability of its product. We need to provide those kind of document, to provide those kind of certification, those kind of packaging to be able to be imported to Japan. And this is something that I think we need to educate our entrepreneur, our exporter, potential exporter, so they can grab the market in Japan. Now it's still dominated by Brazil, but we can still grab the halal market product in Japan, because we know how to process halal food, halal products. So I think this is also the opportunities.
Yeah.
And yeah, another thing is that we need to ensure the cleanliness of the meat product itself, because Japan is very hygiene and very high standard in terms of cleanliness. So this is something that we need to prepare.
Yeah. Thank you, Mas Pandu. It's clear to meet.
Mas Is,
Yeah.
It's still related to my question. I mean, if I, for example, want to try to export commodities from Indonesia to Japan, where do I can find the information of the requirement, for example, or is there really any demand for Indonesian resources? Where can I find it?
Good question. As of now, you can go to Kemdap or to FTA Center in Jakarta and other countries. I believe Kemdap has a lot of branches of FTA Center. You can ask them how to export products. And for market in Japan, you can also contact the trade attaché, Pa Arif, the opportunities and the requirements to export to Japan. This is something that you can do now, to ask them directly, but we're now developing that kind of smart embassies. So hopefully it will be launched by this August. This will help potential exporter, potential entrepreneurs to export their product to Japan. Yeah. So in that dashboard, you can find information such as what are the requirements to export products to Japan, what are the market opportunities, and so on and so forth. So.
Yeah, thank you. You can also ask customs, Mas Sabto. Okay, I would like to go to Mas Robi from Bea Cukai Tanjung Perak. Come on, you may raise a question.
Thank you for the opportunity. I want to ask question to Mr. Pandu. This year, Japan and ASEAN is ready to amend the trade agreement between them. This amendment, which called the first protocol of ASEAN-Japan Agreement on Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or IGCP, have completed the legal procedure necessary for the entry into the force. From the news I was read, this protocol will enter into the force for countries which already complete the ratification, like Laos, Myanmar, Singapore, and Thailand on August 1. My question is, why Indonesia didn't ratify yet this amendment? What's the obstacle? And what's the difference between the first protocol and before the amendment, especially in cross-border trade? Like if this protocol bring positive, like ini, maybe Mr. Bagus can utilize this amendment.
Okay, come on, Pan. Thank you, Mas Robi. Pandu, come on.
To be frank, I'm not really following the issue.
Protocol, yeah.
But what I know is that Indonesia prefers to have a bilateral agreement to be pursued with Japan. We are now currently in the stage of discussing the finalizations of the amendment of the General Review of Indonesia-Japan Economic Partnership Agreement. So we are now in the final stage of the negotiations. Hopefully by this year we can already amend the IJPA, Indonesia-Japan Economic Partnership Agreement, and with this trade agreement, we will have so many opportunities to export the agriculture products to Japan, to export automotive parts, and so on and so forth. So Indonesia priorities, I think, is to ensure the finalizations of the amendment of IJPA. No.
All right. So it's a good chance actually if we ratify the protocol agreement, because when we export a lot, it will cause the impact of our growth. It will give investment, blah, 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 and so forth, so on. Okay. One more question from Virus. Come on. You can activate your microphone, Virus.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam, Mas Fikri. Yeah, Fikri, monggo.
Actually, my question is related about the previous question that discussing about IJPA, Indonesia and Japan agreement. Since I already read some literatures that mention about FTA, free trade agreement, is usually profitable for developed countries like Japan or China, rather than developing countries. So in IJPA agreement, Indonesia and Japan agreement, many literatures said that Indonesia did not get more benefit from that agreement. So for the future, that Mas Pandu said, in this year we hopefully have the final
amendment.
Final amendment. So what will Indonesia do for the future to get more benefit from this agreement with Japan?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good question, Fikri.
Yeah. For IJPA, there are a lot of subcommittees in IJPA that we can make use of it. For instance, there are the I forgot the goods trade issues. From this amendment, we can now send more bananas to Japan. So Japan already accepted to increase the quota for agricultural products, especially banana and pineapples to Japan under this new negotiation. And then also the trade barriers will be lowered between the two countries. And for another thing is that there is also a subcommittee on automotive. We have this MIDEC negotiation, manufacture industry issues, and we already have agreement now with Japan, so we can export more automotive parts, and Japan can also build their automotive vehicles in Indonesia. Another thing is that under the new IJEPA, there will be more comprehensive framework to send our nurses and caregiver to Japan. This is one of the good thing about IJEPA. We can send more nurses and caregivers to Japan, and with this new IJEPA, there will be a more comprehensive framework on how the nurses can learn Japanese, can be trained Japanese language, on how they can also straight into the work in Japanese hospital, and so on and so forth. So basically, what we are currently negotiating with Japan under this new IJEPA, I think it will be Indonesia will get more benefits. That's why we are pursuing this general review of IJEPA.
Yeah. Pa Harun, do you have any thoughts about IJEPA protocol or agreement in terms of oil and gas?
So far, oil and gas I think it's not included with the IJEPA because oil and gas is very liquid in the market. But maybe I can add some of the, based on my experience in the trading company in Japan, because I lead the trading company when the Pertamina assigned me in Tokyo. So I can suggest for all of the players that would like to start export to Japan or start the cooperation with the Japanese party. So I can suggest that it's also the opportunity as well for the all of the Indonesians that currently in Japan. So just try to networking with other Japanese to start with communication, and then try to digging others opportunity in terms of a trade and also the investment. So I can suggest if we would like to export or something like the Masapto question, export some to the Indonesian strengths like the food, like the meat to Japan. We have to, in my experience, we have to get the Japanese partners. We have the opportunity if we find out the Japanese partner. First, we can utilize the financial from the Japanese institution, because the Japanese institution, financial institution, offering the lowest rate, I think, all over the world. So this way we can utilizing the money from Japan that they have the lowest rate, interest rate, and we can bring it to Indonesia, working together with them and start working. And we can, because if we link with the Japanese company, we can make it scale up the business. So the business is not only the small, and of course, usually Japanese company would like a long term of the contract, at least 1 year.
Yeah.
So we have the certainty, we have the lowest interest rate in terms of money, and we have a capacity that can meet the requirement. So I think that's the idea that we would like to start to export. So if we cannot utilize the Japanese fund, so I think if we utilizing the Indonesian fund, I think our products cannot compete.
Okay, that's
cannot
great.
Cannot compete. So that's why I suggest we link with others partner in Japan. We start and utilizing their money, because the interest rate very low. Is interest rate in the company in Japan. Only my company at the time is only 0.77% per year.
Wow, the lowest in the world.
This is the lowest one. Maybe right now this become more lower compared with others, and we can utilize that money. Of course, we can a lot of room to upgrade in terms of quality, in terms of packaging. Yeah. So I live in Bogor, and I think not far away from Bogor. We can find the Cilembu area. Cilembu area is, we know, the we call the ubi Cilembu, and then like a cassava, this is a very sweet, very sweet, a sweet potato, sweet honey sweet potato, this is a very famous in Japan. All of area in the Cilembu is contracted for 50 years to produce the sweet potato and export directly to Japan. That's what I mean. If we would like to start and utilizing our natural resource, so for the long term, I think it's a good thing that we cooperate with the Japanese partner as well.
Wow,
that's my experience.
Thank you, Pa Harun. That's a good insight. Okay, we also have participants on YouTube. There are 10 participants, and Dr. Firman would like to ask about halal food, already answered by the question from Sabto. And Mas Edu would like to ask about personal journey of Mas Pandu. How do you feel about finishing master degree in foreign university and also your PhD? Is it different compared to local university or domestic one? Mas Pandu?
Yeah, of course. I think I was very fortunate enough to have education from Australia and from Japan as well, because Australia and Japan have some kind of different cultures that I can embrace. With Australia, when I was in Australia, I think the Australian education system adopts a Western style. So critical thinking is something that we nurture. The professor nurtured to us how we can always to be critical in every readings and every thing that we get. So and if we disagree with the professors, we can just say it to our professors, and even we call professors by their name. Like myself, I just called my professor Bill. Hi Bill, I'm not disagree on these issues because of what I read in other articles mentioned like this, blah 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 blah. So I think this is something that Australia taught me on how to be critical in critical thinking. While when I was in Japan, I learned so many things about methodology on how to create hypothesis and how to dig into evidence-based arguments. Some things that I learned from Japan. We cannot call our professors by their name. This is very very rude in Japan, but professors in Japan are very diligent, and they are trying to teach us about why we write this paper, why we write this article, and so on and so forth, how to do a good methodology. So this is something that I really learned from Australia and from Japan, and also from Indonesia, from UI. So I was very very fortunate enough to learn in these three countries. So perhaps Mas Iswandi also can share more about that.
Yeah. Okay, I would like to ask also Pa Harun, because Pa Harun also has a postgraduate program for energy technology in Auckland University, New Zealand 20 years ago, and graduated as the best engineering student. Wow, keren banget ini. Pa Harun, any thoughts about your impact doing overseas study in Auckland? Yeah.
Oh, I think so. So at that times, I already joined with Pertamina, and then Pertamina they open opportunity to all of the employee. So Pertamina have cooperation with the New Zealand government related to developing new and renewable energy.
Yeah.
So I even didn't have any TOEFL score at that time. So just the professor from the Auckland University come to Pertamina, and they discuss with the top talent of the Pertamina. So I'm lucky I joined in the top talent of Pertamina, and then the interviewing us, all of the some of the Pertamina guys interviewing during the session, and then yeah, just a conversation related with the vision in the energy technology and the developing of the energy in Indonesia, something like that. So afterwards, around 2 or 3 months, the letter from the Auckland University come to the office.
Yay.
And then they told me that you can join the postgraduate in the Auckland University. So yeah, I know this. I don't have enough money if I would like to take the postgraduate in a foreign country. So that's why I took this opportunity, and yeah, of course, we live in dormitory at that time, so with other colleagues from all over the world. So so at that times, I put my I have to be the best in this university. So that's why this some of the passion and the spirit that I built at that times, because I already far away from home. So I was always in the first 2 or 3 weeks, I always miss a home.
Homesick.
Miss a baso, miss a gado-gado. Yeah, so but anyway,
Same.
I think this is a good opportunity for us, and we have to be feel that I think the feel uncomfortable is very challenging, and I think this is good for us to develop ourselves actually. So this is the first time I learned about how to live in other countries and other and studying the new and I feel the real. I took the very serious school in a foreign, because in Indonesia I never took the serious serious education.
Come on.
So this why. I
Okay.
think that's a good opportunity, and then when I come back, so that the company appreciated, and by the times the career is also developed in the company, and a very very strange when I was appointed as a president director of PPT in Japan, because before I pointed to get assignment in Japan, I never came to Japan. Even I get the travel business travel to Japan, but cancel. I never come to Japan at that time. So when I was coming to Japan, we assigned at Tokyo. So I think I signed as president of the PPT at the longer term. So it's already 3 times they extend my turn in Japan. So this is very very amazing for me. Also. Of course, all of the lovely friends in Japan. So and lovely memories as well. So Japan is my second hometown actually.
Definitely.
We miss you in your presence here in Japan, Pak.
Yeah. Okay,
we miss your presence here in KBRI.
It's been 1.5 hour our discussion presentation from Pa Harun, from Mas Pandu and participants. Thank you very much for joining us by Zoom meeting and also by YouTube. Closing statement from Mr. Diplomat, Mas Pandu. Come on.
I think in this era, the world is our playground. So please make full use of it. Learn new language, travel to new territories, and make friends of to everyone, to every people that you meet. So I think that's what I can say to you. And as I mentioned earlier in my slides, some people dream of success, while we wake up and work hard for it. So if you want to be a success, don't forget you have to wake up from your dream and work hard to achieve it. So I think that's what I can say to you. And please feel free to drop me a message on Instagram at Pandu_Manggala, and feel free also to contact me whenever you travel to Japan, because I will be here. I will be here. My assignment will be around 3 years.
3 years.
So
wow, great.
Yeah, until 2022. So thank you, Mas Iswandi, and everyone, Pa Harun as well. We miss your presence here in Japan.
Thank you, Pak.
Yeah.
Thank
you, Mr. Diplomat and
friends Japan.
Mr. Vice President, Pa Harun, your closing statement, please, for our young generation over here.
So I think Japan is the potential for the market and for the investment and for the technology. So I do hope all of us, the young generation, to learn a lot about the culture, about how the Japanese work and how they develop their knowledge and their discipline and also the attitude. So I think we can learn a lot from the Japans, and also we can utilizing the potential and strength that Japan's already have, and Japan already have, and utilizing cooperation with Indonesia and exploring some of the Indonesian strength that we can make it develop our country with cooperation with Japan. I think that's the closing from.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Chandra, any thoughts about this session? What's your comment? Chandra from Surabaya. Yeah. You can activate your...
Thank you.
Any comments of our session for today? Mana Chandra? Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Mas Iswandi. It is a great opportunity. Actually, I really love this webinar because it really improved my knowledge, and I'm practicing my English right now. And maybe I'm not asking any question, but
yeah, just comment. Come on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward for another session.
Yeah, thank you, Chandra, our model from Bea Cukai. Nah, I would like also Dika. Dika, what's your thought, your comment from Cirebon? Dika,
well,
what do you think? Yeah.
Hello everyone, I'm Dika from Cirebon. Hello?
Yeah. I can hear. Yeah, we can hear.
Okay.
What's your thought?
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm di Sambi sebenarnya ini
It's
sama
okay.
kerja.
Yeah, masih jam kerja.
Yeah. So this kind of webinar basically opened my thoughts about the other things that I don't even met before. So hopefully this is give us a new experience, a new insight about the Japan especially.
Yeah, thank you, Dika. Alik from Jakarta, any comments about Mas Pandu or Pa Harun? What's your thought, Alik? Okay, we can go to Farin. Farin, what's your comment about this session?
Thank you, Pak Iswandi. Thank you, Pa Pandu, Pa Harun, and all the participants with those great questions. I got so many insights today, and this webinar makes my WFH schedule so productive.
Thank you so much. And Dina Masruroh, any comment, Mbak Dina?
Well, thank you, Pak Iswandi. Well, I think this is great because I never expect I will get information this much. I will wait for the next webinar.
Thank you so much. You can say hi, activate your microphone to Mas Pandu and Pa Harun. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the session, and see you soon. And next week we will have Nigeria Customs. We're talking about counterfeit goods kosmetik yang palsu, barang-barang palsu, because it's also my research here in Canberra. So see you for next week. Thank you, Pa Harun, Mas Pandu.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all participants. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you.